back with one of the ones that was here.
You still can.
Yeah.
Let me buy the ticket. I'm like, yeah, I gotta buy the ticket. That's right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, they kind of are. They kind of are.
I'm surprised.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order this Lacey City Council meeting. It's Thursday, September 7th. And if you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just to let the public know, we do have a couple of council members who are attending remotely tonight, Councilmember Stedman and Councilmember Cox. Councilmember Greenstein is unable to make it tonight and is excused from this meeting. With that, we do have a published agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion looks like it carries unanimously. We have an approved agenda and consent agenda. Next up on our approved agenda is public comment. We received 2 written public comments. We had no one signed up. Is anyone wishing to address this council? Not seeing anyone. We'll go on to our next agenda item, which is under proclamations. It's the National Voter Registration Day proclamation. And we'll get started with Councilmember Vazquez.
Whereas registering to vote empowers eligible community members to exercise their right to vote on Election Day, and
whereas the City of Lacey is committed to strengthening democracy by encouraging voter registration and increasing participation in all elections, and
whereas civic-minded people and organizations have collaborated to establish September 19th, 2023 as National Voter Registration Day, and
whereas the goal for the 2023 National Voters Registration Day is to create awareness of elections and motivate eligible community members to vote in the coming months, and
Whereas the strength of our democracy depends on the willingness of our community members to participate by choosing those who will lead us and by voicing their opinions on important matters that will come before the voters on Election Day, and whereas fewer voters participate in local odd-year elections due to lower levels of media coverage and information about local issues and candidates.
Whereas the Thurston County Urge Your Neighbor to Vote Challenge aims to encourage regular voters to reach out to their neighbors with the tools and information they need to feel informed and empowered to turn in their ballots. Now, therefore, I, Andy Ryder, Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby recognize September 19th, 2023 as National Voter Registration Day in Lacey and encourage all eligible community members to register to vote when they receive their ballot, and encourage others to vote. Signed by myself, Mayor Andy Ryder, on this date. And people come up with here's the proclamation. Thank you. Podium's yours.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tilly Napasi-Polar, the Elections Manager for Thurston County. We want to thank the City of Lacey for their continued recognition of National Voter Registration Day. Voting is a cornerstone of our democracy. Our biggest goal is voter registration. With voter registration is reaching the young community. About 70% of our 18 to 24-year-olds are registered in Thurston County compared to over 90% of our other age groups. The good news is voter registration has never been any more easier. We now have same-day registration, and 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote. 2023 marks the 10th National Voter Registration Day in Thurston County. We're celebrating that by launching the Urge Your Neighbor campaign with Timberland Library. We are partnering with them to empower voters to urge their neighbors to vote starting this October. We are challenging frequent voters to lend their knowledge to encourage those that don't vote often, bridging the gap to create a more informed electorate.
For the record, my name is Holly Paxson. I'm the library manager of the Lacey and Hawks Prairie Timberland Libraries. Libraries throughout Thurston County will carry ballot party kits that voters can use to host their own events to encourage their friends and neighbors to vote. Voters can log their participation once the challenge launches in October at thurstonwavotes.gov. The jurisdiction with the most participants per registered voter will win. Libraries are essential tools in empowering informed voters, ensuring that our democracy thrives through knowledgeable and engaged citizens. Thank you again for your support and partnership on this and so many other important issues.
Thank you. We appreciate it and appreciate everything you guys do. So next up on our agenda is resolutions. Resolution 1136 for the Local Parks Maintenance Grant. We're excited that we have this opportunity, and I know we are under a deadline, so I'll turn it over to Jen, and she can explain it to the council.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, good evening. So before you tonight, as the mayor stated, is a resolution that would authorize ability and flexibility to apply for a Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, or RCO, Local Parks Maintenance Grant. This is a unique one-time program, at least it's one time for now. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities in the future. But it is unique in that there is no match required, and organizations may submit only one application and may receive up to $100,000. So the Washington State Legislature provided this funding to help focus and help communities in need to address maintenance backlogs for key local parks facilities and capital improvements. Yes, it is a tight turnaround, as the mayor mentioned. RCO opened, sent out information and opened the applications August 15th, and they're due September 18th. So staff have been working together and with the RCO grants manager over the past week to determine which project. And I do need to apologize for the incomplete sentence in your staff report. It says, identify project if ready. And so what you have is the 3 projects that we're reviewing right now identified in the actual resolution under number 1. It says the City of Lacey intends to apply for funding assistance managed by RCO for up to 3 local parks maintenance projects, and so specifically the Wonderwood Trail and Basketball Court resurfacing, the Regional Athletic Complex Project Lights Relamping Project, and then the proposed rack equipment replacement project. Currently, as of the end of business today, we think we would score the highest on the Wonderwood project, so we're leaning towards that. But again, still just kind of working through the final decision for that. A resolution is required by City Council in order for me to be able to apply, so I appreciate your consideration.
With that, can I get a motion to approve?
I would move that we approve resolution number 1136, authorizing the City of Lacey's city manager or delegate to apply for funding assistance managed by the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office for Local Parks Maintenance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Looks like that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep you updated.
Next, we're under ordinances, on ordinance 1643 to finalize the 2023 budget amendment. Troy.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. Good evening, council. As become custom, we have amended our budget once per year, and we do that in September in preparation for our following year's budget document. That way we have a more fair comparison between the 2 years. We've also become accustomed to providing the Finance Committee with periodic report outs on the significant amendments, and of course, we've done that throughout the year so far. You do have the total list of all proposed amendments in Exhibit A of the ordinance. I would like to take just a few minutes to go through some of the more significant amendments and those amendments that may be of public interest. The first is a $450,000 amendment, and this is requested for the Veteran Services Hub Accessibility Project. This is a project that will include an elevator, ADA doors, as well as design on parking lot improvements. This is a project that is fully funded by the Housing and Urban Development Grant, so that's great news for us. Looking at the RAC, we have a $60,000 amendment proposed to start the replacement of LED lighting. This is really an upgrade in lighting. But more importantly, what this does is it extends the warranty on these lights, so as they fail, we can avoid those really expensive repairs as we go forward. There are a couple of significant amendments related to our police station project. There are two separate amendments. There's one for just over $1 million, and this is related to the design and inspection contract. This is a contract the council actually authorized last December. When we adopted our budget, it was a little bit unknown in terms of the timing of some of these expenses and the amount, so we decided to wait until they were known, and that's why we're including that in this amendment. The other is related to the land purchase from St. Martin's University. There's a $2,040,000 amendment in this proposal as we quickly approach closing that transaction. There's a $500,000 amendment in the Regional Athletic Complex Capital Fund. This is related to the parking lot expansion. That's the expansion right on Stillicum. As we got to 90% design, we could see that we're going to have a little more costs than anticipated. So again, a $500,000 amendment for that project. There's a $500,000 amendment in the Water Operations Fund. This is for the replacement of water meters and the transmission units that go with those meters. You might remember the fact that the meter system is quickly and kind of alarmingly failing. But as we saw this happen, we ran into supply chain issues. So these orders were actually placed in 2022, just now being received in 2023. So the budget, of course, didn't account for that, so we need to basically carry over those unspent monies to 2023. Another amendment related to meters is a $375,000 amendment. This is separate from the meter system failures. This is a program that will replace our large meters. So we have meters that, in terms of large meters, they range from 1.5 inches up to 4 inches. We think these meters should be replaced every 10 years, and we're right at that 10-year period. So this is a 2-year project that will replace all of those large meters. You do have within the amendment as well a whole list of capital improvement program amendments within transportation and the 3 utilities. There are, of course, inflationary increases that happen within our projects since the pandemic occurred and those design costs are becoming a little more clear. But I'll also say that some projects are actually moving faster than we expected. This is a welcome change from the projects that we've seen delays because of supply chain issues. This isn't to say that everything is back to normal, but it is a bit refreshing to see some of these projects moving quicker. One prime example of that is the Terry Cargill Reservoir. There's a $4 million amendment for that, and that is a project that is moving quicker than anticipated. So that's a brief summary of the more significant amendments. Of course, I'll turn this back over to the council for any questions, but this does come with a recommendation to approve and authorize those amendments to the budget.
Is there a motion?
I would recommend that we adopt ordinance, or move that we adopt ordinance number 1643, amending the 2023 budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember?
I'm curious about the funds requested for the hub improvements. Those are a long time coming, and it's exciting to hear we're going to be doing that. But did we not put those into the budget initially because of the grant funding piece of things? Did we have to wait until we received approval that we were going to get those grant funds?
I actually think this is a project that we missed during the development of the budget. Kind of looking for help from our friend from our assistant city manager, but I believe we just overlooked that project in terms of.
We've talked about it, and we obviously applied for it, the grant, and we know we received it. We just didn't ever put it into the budget.
I believe that's the case, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I had another couple questions. The park seasonal wages, is there just one wage rate that we pay our park seasonal staff, or are there a bunch of different wages that all were increased based on recruitment challenges?
So for parks maintenance, correct, but they do get a bump depending on the number of years they've been here.
Like a seniority increase?
Right,
Or a
right.
series of steps?
It's, I think you've heard us say it's getting more and more challenging to get seasonals. And so, yeah, you have to bump the wages up just to get them. But yeah, so the answer to your question is they're all the same other than the experience level.
Okay. And is it minimum wage? Because minimum wage is increasing each year.
Oh, no, this is in the $20+ per hour range.
Well, that's great. And then maybe last question. The vehicle chargers that are going to cost about $120,000, are those all for the rack, or is it partially some of the ones that we need for the rack coming out of that arterial fund and then some for other parts of the city?
The rack EV charges is a separate project, and that's actually not fully funded yet. We are actively seeking grant funding for that. I do believe that project does include the power to that project. This is more related to the EV chargers that are here at City Hall that will be at the school district building as well as the community center.
We received a grant for that as well.
We did. It just did not cover the full cost of that project.
Thank you.
With that, is there any more discussion?
Real quick, on wastewater operations, it says 50,000 is requested, additional maintenance. Is that going to also mean potentially additional employees? I know that 50 isn't going to cover an additional employees, but is this additional maintenance going to potentially lead to us needing more employees in that department?
No, that's not related to labor. That's just the overall cost of, supplies and any potential professional services that may be related to that program. And maybe as far as a little more background, it was probably 4, maybe 5 years ago, the council made the decision that we would maintain step systems, which we didn't fully commit to in the past. So that's really this budget, the operating budget, catching up with those decisions that were made, like I said, about 5 years ago.
And I still stick by that decision because it's so many people, you buy a house and you don't realize that the prior developer put a step system in, and the step system goes out, and you're like, what? And so we have actually, and there were some that we did and some that we didn't, and so we decided, I'm not sure how many years ago, just say, let's take over all the step systems in the city of Lacey, and I think that was a good decision on our part. Although it's expensive, as you can see. Any other discussion? Then it's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 1643, which is the final 23 budget amendments. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries as well. So next up on our agenda is the mayor's report. Real quick, we have 3 reappointments for the Historic Commission, and I would move that we reappoint Kevin, Jim, and Kimberly to the Historic Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries. We've reappointed them to the Historic Commission. Also just want to run something by the council. You know, this last week we had a joint council meeting with the tribe. At that tribe, we learned about some of the endeavors that the tribe is undergoing right now, and they asked for a letter of support. Everyone's got a chance to see, and then directed me to get that letter to them. I think everyone's seen a chance seeing that. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, well then I will get that letter out to them tomorrow first thing. And now on to our next agenda item, which is our standing general committees. The Finance and Economic Development Committee met on August 22nd. The majority of the meeting we spent going over our budget, our 2023 budget amendment. So we did had 2 other items on there. Is the second quarter investments and the mid-year financial report, but everything is going as we expected, so there's no big surprises there. So with that, that was our Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting. So now I'll go on to boards, commissions, and committee reports. I'm up first. I do not have a report. The mayor's forum was going to meet tomorrow here. We actually moved that to next Friday because tomorrow is Fufara, and that has been an annual recognition for our active duty that's between the Thurston County Chamber and the Olympia Yacht Club, and it's an all-day event, and it's always a great event. And this year I've asked the deputy mayor if he wants to join me with that celebration, and he graciously said yes, so I'll see you bright and early at the Olympia Yacht Club. With that, I'll turn it over to the deputy mayor.
I do not have a report this week. Let's see. EDC has postponed meetings for 60 days, but we will be reconvening later this month. LTAC will also reconvene later this month, and as well as Thurston Thrives won't reconvene until October. That is my report.
How about Councilmember Cox?
Can you come back to me? My phone is giving me troubles here and I can't get to my notes.
Sure, no problem. How about Councilmember Stedman?
No report, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Kunkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one report from SWAC. We did meet yesterday, and it was a very brief agenda. We had an update on recycling markets from the Vice President of Republic Services. Did a brief overview of their plans for expansion of renewable biogas capacity, future electrification of the waste disposal fleet, and the circulatory of recycling plastics, or circularity, excuse me. We also had a brief update on our education and outreach program, which prompted a recommendation for the SWAC to draft a letter requesting slots for 3 new FTEs for more effective efforts in the effort of education and outreach to schools and recycling best practices. And lastly, we had a brief manager's report, much of which is unchanged from what you've heard me talk about for the last several months. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Vazquez.
Intercity Transit met last night, and there was a lot of excitement. They did a hiring fair recently where they had 60 applicants, and out of those 60 applicants, 15 people are being onboarded in their upcoming driver class, which is really exciting because one of the reasons we haven't been able to expand our bus routes is because we haven't had enough drivers ever since COVID. So we're catching up on some of the staffing challenges from intercity transit. Also, they are currently recruiting for a general manager to replace Ann Freeman Manzanares, and I'm helping out on that committee to sort of shepherd the recruitment process through. And I think that's my only report. The Board of Health meets next Tuesday, and the Thurston Regional Planning Council has an all-day work session scheduled for tomorrow. So that's where I'll be instead of having fun on a boat.
That's the other reason why I moved the mayor's forum, because there's some people attending that as well. Have fun at the all-day retreat. How about back to you, Councilmember Cox?
Thank you. I have two reports tonight. The first is on the Climate Collective Executive Committee meeting, which happened on August 28th. We approved a recruitment and appointment process for the Citizens Advisory Work Group. This is going to function a little bit differently from the way it has been functioning the last couple of years as we move into the new construct and way of being that's going to be coming to our council for final approval. Anyway, this group is going to be meeting like monthly along with technical teams, and the executive committee will take a step back and really become a purely policy-making body with quarterly meetings, one of which will be an all-day retreat. We looked at also approving forest protection advocacy. This was the second of our what do I want to say, priorities for the year, and we kind of defined that as the executive committee is going to advocate for and support rural forest protection in Thurston County with tree canopy targets, and advocate at the state level with a focus on legacy forest protection and funding sources, and encouraging the Department of Natural Resources to enroll more land in its carbon project. This will require minimum staff involvement, which was an important factor for our tech team on that. And we said goodbye to TRPC, the Thurston Regional Planning Council, which has been the agency that has served as our facilitator since the inception of this regional climate group. And we'll be starting with a new support organization in October. So that's the report on that. And then Regional Housing Council met on August 22nd, and we heard a report from City of Olympia on the Quince Street Village. This is a tiny house village. I think there's 100 structures there now, plus kitchen and restroom facilities on the site of the former, is it Quality Inn at Plum Street near I-5. And Olympia is hoping to get some financial support, but no decisions on that local from the county fund. We also heard recommendation from the Affordable Housing Advisory Board on capital affordable housing projects. There was $5.5 million this year, and that money awarded is supposed to support the creation of 137 new units of affordable housing, as well as maintaining affordable housing for a modest number of additional households and providing some rental assistance in rural Thurston County. The largest of these grants is going to Interfaith Works and Together We Grow, which are collaborating to build low-income housing in downtown Olympia. This is on the site of the original mitigation encampments over near the Olympia Transit Center. And these grants are being fund sourced from the local home fund, which is Thurston County's home fund and Olympia's home fund combined, as well as two forms of recording fees. We also made a slight change. The Homeless Services Advisory Board recommended that because the Sidewalk Social Service Agency has shut its doors as of August, that a $40,000 grant that had been awarded to that agency earlier in the year essentially be transferred to the Family Support Center. And this money is to be used for diversion services for the single adult homeless population. So everybody was sad to see sidewalk closed, but want to make sure that those funds got used properly. We also adopted an annual work plan for 2024, and it includes review of the housing action plans for each of the participating jurisdictions, a crosswalk of individual jurisdiction housing action plans to identify common topics that would benefit from regional collaboration. So that's my report.
Well, thank you. And with that, we've actually reached the end of our agenda. Obviously, we had a very light agenda, but I was actually considering maybe postponing this meeting or canceling this meeting, but we had the RCO that we needed, resolution that we needed to get in. So with that, we have a really quick agenda, and we've reached the end of our agenda. Without objection, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. And as always, you keep it classy, Lacey.
You beat my record.